Okay, so jumping straight into it. What are we at now? It's 10:30. So just getting a little bit into the morning sort of prep work and that. Obviously, sort of not the full volume of sort of Asia is sort of coming online yet, but overnight finally just got some movement. It's just been this slow grind, like the sort of end of Friday, bulk of sort of Asia and that, it just had nothing basically. It was just, as you can see, it's just this monotonous sort of, even with the Aussie, it's like 10, 10, 15 sort of point range, couple little flick down here, moves down here. But the point that I like with this is one, we had this little falling resistance that we could see sort of lining up yesterday. And obviously had this little sort of fake push down here, but you can see how quickly this reversed. This is on the 1 hour candles and then just fired straight back up. And once we got that close outside this short-term falling resistance, bang, that was at 18 and boof, 30-point move to the top side. So that was a nice little move for the Aussie. We've got to sort of see, obviously, if we're going to get the continuation. We've got the alert set up for that next move that we're looking for. So if we can get that sort of move across over sort of 63.60, we should be looking to sort of confirm a little bit of a move up towards this sort of main sort of falling resistance. So if we zoom out a little bit with this one, we can see it's still coming into this tight little sort of like wedge pattern basically now. Depends where you want to sort of really take these things from, because you could be sort of looking at it and sort of taking this sort of approach that, you've got a bit of a sort of descending triangle, which is definitely, what is sort of setting up, and that, they don't always have to have the exact same sort of lows for it all. I mean, because obviously it's coming down, it's sort of tapping into this sort of main support zone, but you can tell this is where the buyers are, because every single time we've sort of come down here, they've fired up. They've fired up. This is on a daily chart. Here, it took 3 wicks down here, but these closes were obviously a lot lower than here, and each time they're sort of stepping up. They're coming up at this little higher level, but more or less, as it came back down into this zone, buyers stepped up and they pushed it up here. So I think we're definitely going to come to some sort of move soon. Typically, what you'd be expecting with a descending triangle, you look for the direction that it sort of came into it, which in this case is obviously negative, so a bearish, and then it's up, boom, same support each time, lower highs, boom, boom, and then typically what you'd expect with these things is for it to go bang down like this. It's mainly a sort of a bit of a sort of consolidation pattern before the next leg moving down. But what's slightly different about this one, that I'm sort of trying to see, is that this is also this strong sort of falling support. We've had it a couple of times, and this is what's actually giving us a bit more of a wedge pattern, because if you look at just within, this is from October, if you look just within October, yes, it is this sort of descending triangle, but if we actually zoom out and take a little bit of a larger look at it, it's almost coming down, as I said, into a bit more of this wedge pattern. And of course, if it's a wedge pattern, well, wedge patterns are reversals, and that's the direction that you'd be expecting it to go. So realistically, these are the big ones here. So this is, put an alert on this one. So this is the D1 falling support. And one on this one here. So this is the D1 resistance. These are the ones that I'm looking for to get a pop on, because I think sort of at the moment it's really sort of tightening up a lot. As I said, everything is sort of pushing towards continuation to the downside. I mean, if you look on a sort of fundamental level, like all the stuff going on with the war and that, but if you can sort of think on the other side of that just a little bit and sort of say that, look, what if things de-escalate, and what if they sort of release all these hostages, and what if the sort of RBA actually go, what, we need to ratchet up and we need to raise the rates, and what if the Fed need to sort of pause again? Like, it's none of these things are certain. They're all hypotheticals, but this is sort of playing out. What's the scenario going to be in which this kind of sort of technical analysis could be playing out, because we are seeing this negative divergence slightly coming up here. As you can see, it's not coming down past 50 each time on the RSI. So at the moment it's holding. It's really sort of, I mean, if we move this a bit out of the way, you can see it's just dead in the middle there. But still, realistically, price has been moving down. The buying has not sort of been sort of showing the same thing. We're sort of not getting down into this oversold area. So if we can get a sort of little bit of a continuation, obviously there's a lot of headroom up above it to sort of say where we might be sort of going. So it's not to sort of say that this whole sort of scenario coming out like this. This is like maybe a bit of a long shot. I get that, but this is just where that measured move would be if it were to play out in that sort of way. That's a lot of sort of resistance up above. But if you can get above 64 to start with, and then you can start to take out some of these higher sort of wick areas, because you can see every time, like, the market wants to buy it, given the right conditions. It's just that obviously overwhelmingly, well, there's more of the market that wants to sell it. So that's why every time it's gone up, it's got smacked back down into it all. But again, look, if we can break this falling resistance and then take out 64, then we might have something on the cards. And that obviously 65 and the big one at 66. Long way to go, but certainly at the moment the buyers are stepping in at this level here, and this is a triple bottom so far. So it'd be interesting to sort of see where it goes from here. And realistically, a lot of this is more predicated on USD weakness opposed to Aussie strength. But as I said, I'll flip across to the DXY in a moment, and we can see that it's coming down. It's testing that major, it's major, but I guess in the sort of short to medium term, major support level that it would want to be holding if it wants to get long. If it wants to get long, if it wants to sort of hold this sort of bullish momentum, because underneath the level that it's testing, and it tested overnight, we're seeing a little bit of a drop off, and that drop off is going to provide the strength, and because it's going to be a broader USD sell off. It may not be a 1-to-1 ratio with the Aussie dollar, of course, but if the US dollar sells off, it's naturally going to sell off against the Aussie a little bit as well, which is going to give us a little bit of the fuel to sort of push that to the upside there. So at the moment, we're just sort of, as I said, not really too much sort of happening. We've got this nice little breakout here happening. As you can see, 4-hour makes it look very nice. But we want to see continuation. I mean, so many times you've had these nice breaks and they've all just fizzled out. So, time will tell, but you want continual higher highs. You don't want these sort of like, oh, we made an effort and bang, we sold down now. So if we can sort of make some little zones just to give us a bit of an idea about where we want to sort of go next. These are going to be our intraday sort of levels that we're looking to sort of pop through. If we can get back up above 50, excuse me, and obviously we've got these wicks to contend with over here. You can see as soon as it filled these bodies though, that's where the market's like, yeah, cool, let's sell it down a bit, and obviously it cooled off a little bit. So yeah, at the moment, obviously it's just sort of waiting for the volume to come in, but yeah, it's alive off the lows, at least for now. So I flick across to DXY. So as I said on the other thing, I was trying to look for this sort of triangle pattern that it was trading with these sort of intermediate sort of support levels. These ones actually had a little bit higher, so these ones here, because we can see that sort of obviously all these times it came down here, wicked, came up, wicked, came up, wicked, came up. And there was a big push on this. Well, I say big push. There was a bit of a push back on this one last night. Sort of like when the US 10 sort of tipped over 5%. And I think sort of that really gave everything a bit of a push up, but it seemingly looks like maybe this was this around 12 o'clock or no? I think this might have been around 8 o'clock. It was somewhere around this zone here, but obviously markets just used that as an excuse to just hammer into it. And as soon as it gave up this sort of little short-term support, as I was saying on the Aussie, like we can see that it's come down here and it's on these main supports that we've been looking for. So yeah, so what we're kind of looking for now obviously is a continuation of this, a breakdown under this level here, and 304.40 is kind of where I think potentially we could be going. Obviously, it's got a bit of work to do there, but the daily paints a good picture of it here, where we've broken the channel, retested, failed, and now we're coming down to pop in a lower low here. So what we're going to be looking for this is to draw up some new channel lines, some new areas where we can say, yep, this is where the market's going to be sort of hitting it, and where we think it may be going in for the next move. So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to, I say it's not going to, it could, anything's possible, of course. I don't think it's going to melt down. As I said, I think this is a very strong area here, despite the sort of the heavy flows right into it. So there is obviously a chance that we just sort of ricochet and sort of come back up here, because this is the range that I thought I've sort of identified that I thought that we might get a bit of a bounce. But obviously at the moment, it's sort of coming down hard into that. So a break at this level here, you sort of start to look, okay, well, where might they sort of be going to next? You know, you could put a little bit of a sort of support level in here, because we can see with this one here that this was the sort of resistance, it came at support. And then we start to go, okay, where else is the next one? We're coming down here, and again, you know, this was the support as it sort of came back down. So these are the levels that you sort of start to identify and say, this is where the market, you know, valued it to either be buying or selling. And then we look for where we can get these sort of confluences, and potentially if this is to sort of become a bit of a channel, then you could be sort of looking at some sort of move coming down sort of along the bottom line here. This would sort of give us a forming of this channel, which is equal to this top side of the channel here. We've seen that the buyers have valued it from here before. We've seen that they wanted to sell it from here before. It's only natural that the people that were getting long here are going, oh, great, look at this. I've got another chance to buy it at the same level. Boom, and you'd see a bit of a push off here. This could provide a little bit of an undersized test of these supports. This is obviously all predicated on this breaking through here. And then that could be coming back up around this sort of level over here for the top side. And we could see a start to move down here again. So obviously that'd be a little bit cleaner, but more or less that would be the direction that we would be starting to look for. And then we can start to sort of go, if once we can confirm this sort of channel, then you can start to say, okay, where are we going to move to with our price targets? This price target I've got marked out here, I think this is more based on a weekly setup. So with the weekly setup here, we can see that this is previous buys, and it's the same on every every time frame. You know, where is the market valued whatever instrument is you're trading to buy it or sell it? And we can see that, you know, previously this was a very strong area of resistance, so it's only natural it's going to be where people's try to get long again. And with this as well, it comes in line with the 38% retracement, because you've got to think sort of like all these little pullbacks here, that's great, but you know, I mean, look at how far it came from. It came from sub 100, so it's still got a long way to go. Just to sort of, you know, I mean, just sort of show any sort of full failure. But it's natural that it could have a cool down. It could have a sort of thing and come back here and then sort of go bang, and then that could be the next move moving up. So I think sort of short term, I think 104.50, 104.40, I think is a reasonable level to sort of say if we're going to sort of continue down. That's where I could see it sort of going over the next week or so. I mean, again, anything can change, but it doesn't look like it's the sort of safe haven of choice. And the longer that it takes sort of Israel to go in by foot, the more the market's like, okay, you know, we'll try to give this a little bit more leeway in that. And this is the thing, you've got to plan for both directions. You've got to plan, okay, yes, the war's going on, but, you know, that's not the only thing happening in the market. It's a very large part of the market at the moment. War always is. But, you know, this hasn't been the typical kind of thing. Like, it's not the same that we sort of saw with Ukraine. Ukraine oil ripped from like 90 to 136 over a space of probably a couple of months or so. I think we're about 3 weeks or so into this thing at the moment. But, you know, we saw at the start of it, Aussie actually took off, which is a risk asset, and, you know, they stormed in. You'd expect Aussie to get dumped. you're balancing it with gold, sorry, not gold, with US dollar that's been running for 13 weeks straight prior to this. You know what I mean? If you're going to go for that sort of safe haven, where's the better option? Like, and obviously it's gold, and Swiss franc, I don't trade that, but these other typical safe haven places to park money, they're the ones that have been doing a lot better. I mean, even as this thing's been happening, gold's really done nothing. I mean, it's gold, sorry, DXY has really done nothing. It's just putted along sideways because it's already seen such growth coming into it prior. The risk reward up around this level is just not there. Gold got hammered coming into it. It was breaking out on a technical level just prior on the Friday with that NFP before the Middle East situation kicked off. So it just went bang bang on two fronts. And so, certainly I would expect a little bit more, as I've been saying the last couple of weeks, a little bit more of a cooling off with DXY. Short-term target, 38%, I think is definitely a doable sort of thing. DXY typically loves super deep pullbacks. If you go through all the different time frames and that, like it's not really like, I mean, obviously this is showing pretty shallow sort of stuff here, but this is all one move. Once it starts to sort of cool off and come back, typically it likes pretty deep pullbacks. So, you could be also looking if, and this is obviously way off, it's not about to happen, but if we get a pop of these levels here, the 61% isn't sort of like, okay, game over, we're going back down. DXY loves deep pullbacks. It could come all the way back here and then fire back up, and then we could find that this could be our new range. But that's all getting ahead of us because this is on a weekly chart. The here and now is that it is sitting right on support levels, which we've seen it test a couple of times. Pretty low sort of volume coming into the bottom here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of an attempt to push up here, but I still think this will be a bit of a liquidity grab, and I think this will be a drop down here. Next level will be 105, which isn't too far off, actually, to tell you the truth, but then I expect a little bit of a support and a bounce sort of come off from there. Going to the gold, so gold played out pretty much as sort of predicted the last couple of days. I said 1980 was going to be an issue. It has been a complete issue. Dropped down here, actually held this first zone very well, fired back up, straight back up into it. So this was actually very, very sort of on point with it all, almost to the cent, dollars with these kind of things. But it's just really, it's grinding. It's, again, it's come up 10% from the lows. It's into this sort of little consolidation zone at the moment, and realistically, while things are stagnant, is I guess the right word for it all over there. Like you're not like there was a whole bunch of bombing overnight, and like there's all that kind of stuff. It's still happening and it's still bad, but in terms of what is going to drive gold, I think people are waiting to see if the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, sort of storm in on foot. Once they go in on foot, I expect gold to fire up again. But as it is right now, 1980 I've been going on about for months, so saying this is the level, this is the level, this is the level, and obviously the market agrees, and it's sort of taking a sort of bit of an extended breather here. You got to be wary with these ones. The fact that this second push here actually came in lower, although this is obviously stops being hit because it got smacked into so quickly. This second high isn't even technically quite up to these sort of highs, even if you take out this top wick here. So you've got your first lower high. If we put in a lower low, then you're looking for a little bit more of a cooling off sort of thing coming in along this sort of direction here. And, there's nothing bad with that, but it's just sort of showing that sort of like, there might be a little bit more sort of consolidation and sort of cooling just in the sort of intermediate before we get that next leg up. I don't think gold sort of is going to sort of drop right off. I still think 2000 plus is on the cards, particularly if we see DXY drop down. Like that's the thing, sort of, as I've said a couple of times, like they've got 90% of the time, they've got a great inverse relationship. But you know what I mean? We've seen gold come up, as I said, 10%. We haven't seen DXY come down more than 1%. So, that sort of correlation isn't really on point at the moment, but it will go back to that. It reverts back to, as I said, 90% of the time, it's a strong inverse relationship. So, the other 10% of the time it snaps people out and they're trading, hold on, whatever. This is the correlation. And, if gold's doing this, US dollar should be doing this and vice versa. But, those times, that's when it snaps people out. But it will revert back to that sooner or later. And when that happens, if we see an extended US dollar sell off, um, that could again see all the sort of funds and the money from US dollar flow into gold, and that could be another driver to sort of get it to the top side. So I'd expect it probably a little bit more of a grind while the market just sort of digests it. A couple of little sort of maybe lower lows and that to sort of like drag in some sort of shorts, grab some liquidity, stop out some longs. I think this main trend could offer a pretty decent position, as I've sort of got it marked out down here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bit of a sort of push down, at least through Asia, and then maybe sort of a bit of a fire up in that sort of come. What's this? It's on the 4-hour chart. So yeah, maybe come sort of even tomorrow or through US sessions, might see a little bit more of a kick on. But I don't think we're going to see a great deal through Asia with gold. Copper defending the line, really sort of like copper's been such a snooze the last couple of weeks since it broke this. I mean, you can see how actively we were sort of trading and following it up through these zones here. Come down here and it's just grinding, but it's holding the line. You know what I mean? This is quite a few attempts down here now. This one was obviously a very fast shoot back, and I thought that if you came down here, as I said, you got to wait for these candles to close. If you don't get the candle to close, well, this is what happens. It snaps you out. It fires back up. As I've sort of got marked out here, the buying is pushing up despite these sort of sell downs. So these are a little bit weak in my eyes, and that's why I keep saying that we may sort of get a bit more of a grind before succumbing to this move down here to 340. This 340 down here, this price target will move down here that I've got mapped out. Again, it's predicated on a close under this support. You don't get the close under this support, you don't initiate this price target, this price point here. So yeah, till we get a close under that, I think we're still in this sort of grind. So I'm going to drag a little box over these guys as well, because this is your zone here. And once you get a close outside here, once you get a close outside here, then I think we're going to see some direction. But at the moment, it's just, again, the market's just contemplating, what's really going to happen. You got to, again, keep looking outside just the war. China seems to be really hammering it on a couple of fronts. They're sending a guy to the US, sorry, I don't know his name, to have talks. We've got Albanese going to China. We got Albanese, sorry, not Albanese. We got China and US. Someone from the US is going to China as well. So, there's actual sort of movement happening with China in the background here. I think they've realized how stuffed they are with their sort of housing market and all that sort of residential stuff. They realize that if they just sort of keep this sort of like, oh, hey, we're tough, we don't need anybody kind of attitude, they're just going to implode. So I think they're really trying to start to push things, and PBOC is injecting a lot of money. They're trying to ramp up their manufacturing figures as well to sort of maybe compensate for the housing side of stuff. So I think there's a lot going on with China at the moment, which is sort of seemingly just like petering along in the background. And how that's relevant here is that obviously, being one of the largest, if not the largest manufacturer in the world, if they ramp up their manufacturing, they're going to need products, and copper is one of the most versatile used metals. And so it's a good indicator of sort of, okay, where risk is at, because, if people are, you don't ramp up production if you're in a risk off mode. So obviously, all in all, it's coming down, but it's still holding the line for now. So I think, a little bit more sideways grind, I wouldn't be surprised. Speaking of China and that, going across to the yuan, I just call it China anyway. This is where we're at yesterday, this top part here. I said, look, look at this bearish candle. These are like, the triangles, the head and shoulders, these kind of things. They're great, but the fact that it sort of dragged on through, originally we had it through this shoulder, we moved it to this one here. based on the fact that, you've got one shoulder at this level here, one shoulder matching it over here. That seems a little bit better, albeit it took a while to get here. I was saying yesterday that, look, I'd expect this to have a little bit of a cooling off because I think these are the lines, like as we've got marked out with this sort of consolidation box here, these are the lines that really matter. You want to get your close down under here because we've seen a number of times, albeit only 3 up the top here, it's got up here, it's been smacked down. This is when the PBOC intervened and they absolutely dumped it on. These times here, I mean, obviously a little hard one here, not so much of in the size of the candles rejections here, but it didn't even close up around here. And you can see the continuation flow coming down here as well. It's coming back off, just tipping into overboard as well. So I could definitely see a little bit more sort of like downside through here. If we have a quick look at this now, if we drag just a little support through here, let's call this one of our zones. I would say if we can break this one here, we're coming back down to test down over here again. And this is what we'll be giving our head and shoulder, which I'm happy to sort of, even though this is more of a range price target move, I still think that, if we can break down this level here, this will be the price target down over here to sort of come through. And obviously, so we've still got this main sort of support coming all the way up here, which just hasn't been touched since, was this back in May, so a long time. But this was one of the things where we were up over this level here. I'm like, yeah, could it just grind sideways? Honestly, I didn't think it would. And for a second there, I was like, oh, head and shoulders, here we go, boom. And, it did. It just ground on. So a lot of the market's in there just a wait and see kind of attitude at the moment. If you sort of step back and look at all those charts, a lot of it's just really gone to sleep. It's almost sort of like, US or sort of Europe summer trading. Like it's just really tight ranges. But it just sort of means that, it's building, and whichever way that it does break, it's going to explode. So, yeah, I think you just got to sort of plan for both of them, and sort of like, obviously just be prepared with the stops and that if it does go against you with those ones. Cool. All right, that's about it from me for now.